Welcome to the CE Pro podcast. I'm executive editor Arlen Schweiger. How much old inventory do you have lying around the shelves of your warehouse or garage? CE Pro heard from an integrator who stumbled upon an unopened multi-channel amplifier box from way back in 2005, and it got us thinking about that question. So we turned it into CE Pro's first ever oldest gear contest and asked for integrators to share their stories with us about the oldest equipment they have that was never installed. Any guesses what won? Stick around and find out as senior web editor Adam Forziati speaks with winner Tom Loveitt of Canfield Systems, and then James Foxall of contest sponsor Tiger Paw in this week's podcast episode. As always, be sure to subscribe to CE Pro's YouTube channel and hit that like button on our videos, or subscribe to the CE Pro podcast on Apple and Spotify and leave a review.
First of all, can you start us off with a little information about yourself, Tom, and Canfield Systems in general?
Canfield Systems, although having had a couple of name changes along the way as the technology and the profile of the company evolved, goes back to just after the Second World War. It was established by a fellow who wanted to get on this great new trend of every home having a radio. So he decided to start a radio company. And that very quickly evolved into a commercial pursuit. And from then it went to more of a focus on industrial and institutional pursuits. And that is still a large part of what we do here.
Can you tell us about this product that's been sitting on the shelf since the 1970s? What do you know about it and how it got there to begin with, and why it's never been used or taken out of the packaging?
Well, it predates me. My involvement in commercial audio. This product was one of Telex's early forays into assistive listening. These days, it's more like a set of headphones than anything else. I frankly have never seen it installed anywhere, but I've noticed it on the shelf since I came to work with this company, which was in the early 90s.
Can you tell us if you know anything about how this product actually works? And I love looking at the box. It looks like something out of the movie Vertigo, but
it does, doesn't it?
It's really fascinating. But do you know much about this product and what it actually is and how it works exactly?
I have to admit that I don't. You know as much by looking at that box as I know by looking at that box. It's clearly not listed in any of their technical literature these days. I don't think I'll ever find a cut sheet on it. It's just a very unique thing. Why we still have it is probably the biggest mystery. You'd think that would have been discarded in some purge over the last 30 years, but I guess everyone liked the box. The model is just too pretty.
Too pretty. What do you do with other old gear when you upgrade clients? I mean, I know that you said that this isn't the only thing that's sat on your shelves, and I wanted to ask you about that in a moment, but what do you do with other old gear when you are going through a client upgrade? Well,
that's a good question. And we support many municipal organizations at a profit. But in keeping with our decision that was made many years ago that the best customer is a repeat customer, we try everything we can to make people think of us first. Sometimes it's as simple as being able to say yes when someone calls and tells us that the local softball team would like to put up a couple of speakers and needs a microphone. And is there anything that we could sell them? And by the way, their budget is approximately zero. Now, to that end, we have an embarrassing array of used equipment that we've removed from installations that may be 20-year-old technology, it may be 30-year-old technology, but it's good technology. And the brands that we have sold over the years are certainly able to, with minor upkeep, be still valid after that period of time. So we have a lot of stuff that is cluttering up various corners of our warehouse. And sometimes we remember it's there and sometimes we don't. There's some stuff down there that I'm always surprised to find that I probably put there.
It's funny that you mentioned that. So this contest made us at CE Pro think a lot about the value of inventory management systems and, you know, the integration industry's sort of embrace of those. Do you think integration firms in general need to pay better attention to that? And what can you tell me about what Canfield does in terms of managing inventory?
Our inventory management system is probably as rudimentary and primitive as any you'll see, and that is to say, we try to only stock what we are certain we're going to need on a recurring basis on short notice. Now, to that end, over the last 70 years, we've made some mistakes, and we've ended up with too much of one thing or another. And a large portion of our inventory is that. We're not in the business to be the warehouse for the customers. We have other talents to offer that we think are worthy of getting paid. So we're inclined to not inventory much. That being said, there is a 50-year-old Persona phone sitting downstairs. So yeah, our inventory system isn't perfect. Would it be great to have something that keeps track of stock to the nth degree? Yes, but balancing that against the management talent necessary to really make it mean something, the expense of the management talent would be a difficult call, and we've never invested heavily to that end.
In your experience, do you think many integrators of your kind, if you will, are in a similar boat?
In my experience, no. We and I can say that with some degree of confidence because many of our customers have come to us and stayed with us explicitly because they feel that they have a sense that their needs are in concert with our needs. And they have told us that they have not experienced that sense with other vendors. When they call the vendor to say, I'd like a part for that piece that you sold me 5 years ago, and they get passed on to the sales department to sell them something new, that has a cost in the customer's eye. That's not a bad way of doing business. Certainly, it's a common way of doing business. We don't.
So, hey everyone, I'm joined today by James Foxall from Tiger Paw Software, and we're here to talk about the Oldest Gear contest. How you doing there, James?
Adam, I'm doing great. Great to be with you again.
Awesome, likewise. So, I wanted you to first of all just take a look really quick at this winning submission that we got. Apparently, it is a Persona phone. I don't know if you've ever heard of that before. It certainly goes back a ways. It is an assisted listening device, most commonly used apparently in house of worship settings. What is your take on this device that ultimately won?
Well, the very first emotional reaction I had was a little bit of anxiety. That weird pinkish tan reminds me of the accessory parts of an old, I don't remember, I think we had Kirby. I can't remember if it was Kirby or Hoover. I think it was a Kirby vacuum that I had to use as a child in the early 70s. You know, the thing was a full metal chassis, right? Hauling that around the house was a nightmare. So that brings back that. But the other side is seeing those Bakelite knobs and the curly cords. I just kind of want to reach out and play with it. I've never seen anything like it, but it's amazing to see it so pristine and clean like that. It's pretty cool.
And the box is pretty interesting too. Not that that's
Yeah.
the most important part, but it looks like something out of a Hitchcock movie cover or something.
Well, I can tell you from, being in music stuff that the in the box is actually a great thing, right? So to actually have that box so pristine and everything in it, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So part of the impetus behind this oldest gear contest was for us to be able to remind integrators, hopefully in a fun way, of the value of proper inventory management. Just going off of the idea that, like, a lot of people have these old devices that have been sitting on shelves for many, many years and that were just never used. So do you think this is an issue in the integration space from what you've seen?
Oh, absolutely. Although the irony is, if you let it wait long enough, it might be worth more than you paid for it. But when I saw this contest, the first thing I remember was a story my dad used to tell. This is our 39th year in business at Tiger Paw. I've been running it for about 12 years. My father's been retired off in Florida. And we, in our early days, did all sorts of different things. We wrote automation software and put networks in for a local video chain. Actually, it was a regional. We used to travel and do networks and write the software for the barcoding. And we used to do legal collection systems for attorneys. And what really started us on the path where we are today was my father had a friend who owned an Executone telephone system dealership, right? A lot of physical items. And he said, I have nothing to manage all this. So my dad went out and did a tour. And my dad said, ask this question: how do you have any idea of the age of your inventory? And Don Leith, the CEO, literally swiped the dust off a box. He says, by the depth of the dust. That's how we age this stuff. And honestly, 30 years ago, that was actually fairly true. So it's still a common problem, right? And it is a critical problem. And it's a problem really that shouldn't be the level of problem it is for people, because it's solvable, right? And that the real challenge, I think, is it's critical from a cost perspective and a time perspective, right? A cost perspective of buying something that you never sell is a problem, right? Buying something that you've already got is a problem, right? That's money burning, but you also have time issues. When you need to fulfill an order or, an install for a client, and you're waiting on an item because you don't have it in stock, because you don't have a smart enough system to anticipate that, or maybe you thought you had one and it's gone, whether that was from shrinkage or you used it on a job. So you've got time, whenever you got time and money both involved in something, I think that's a challenge. And I think one of the reasons that this space still sees this challenge is it's amazing how many dealers will run into they say, I don't do inventory. Well, wait a minute, you sold $200,000 worth of physical items last year. Yeah, but I just have it drop shipped to the client. Well, just in time is still inventory. So sometimes we'll actually use the term materials management. If you're ordering things to fulfill physical items for a job, you are doing inventory. You're doing a type of inventory, but you're doing an inventory, right? And you've got your warehouse if you keep it. You may have multiple warehouses. Some of our clients do. Every vehicle is a potential warehouse, right? Customer locations, that's another critical one. When you sell it, it goes to the customers. So yeah, this is absolutely a challenge for people, but it's a solvable challenge.
So I'm not sure if if you can comment on this at all, but how much inventory do you think should dealers be carrying in terms of dollar amounts at any given time? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are a little bit different from that dollar perspective, right? The way I look at things is, I think in this day and age that just in time is a viable option for a lot of items, but not everything, right? There are those items that when they fail at a customer location, you need to have one available. It's going to be unacceptable to tell your client, a high net worth client that, it's going to take me 3 weeks to replace that thing, right? And that now it's not usable. Obviously, you can't replace everything like that, but I think the important items that you just need to have on hand. I think there are items that with supply chain issues, you need to stock up, right? And so it becomes more of an anticipatory thing. So my feeling is not so much the dollar amounts as a blend of what can I get easily, quickly, and cheaply, and what are the items that are much more important and much more critical that when I'm ready to go and I got a client that wants to give me money, I can't wait 3 or 4 weeks for that I sell regularly. So Adam, I don't think I can give, from my perspective, I can't give you the number. I'm sure some dealers can. Mine is more of the philosophy on fulfilling these orders and taking care of your clients.
No, totally. I think that's just as, if not more helpful, right? I mean, you can't really build a house until you have that foundation. So
absolutely.
What are, in your opinion, some of the bigger mistakes that you see integrators make in terms of managing their inventory?
There's a lot of mistakes. There's really about 4 questions that I think you need to be able to answer. And if you can answer these, then we can talk about all the mistakes of why, right? One is, what do I have? It's amazing how many people don't know what they have if they're not managing their inventory. right? The other is, where is it? Is it on Bob's bench? Is it in my warehouse? Is it in Ted's truck? Where is the thing? The third one is, what did I pay for it? That becomes really important from a job costing perspective, right? When you're, especially on items that have volatile pricing, that can mean the difference between making money and losing money, the cost. And the other one, which is still important, but not as important, but is how much is it worth today, right? When it comes to aging. So you ought to be able to answer those 4 questions at any point in time. Honestly, if you're using TigerPaw, you can answer those questions every day, and you can actually reconcile your inventory within a penny every day. But if you don't have those things, then some of the problems that you have is you're ordering things that you don't need. We talked a little bit about that, right? I got to get this for an order. Well, I got one in a truck. Why am I ordering another one? I'm paying too much for what I order, right? Because of timing. I haven't ordered things when I needed them, and now when I have to buy them today, the price is not what it was 2 weeks ago when I could have been more anticipatory. I don't have what I need. I mean, one of the things you really want to avoid is part swaps, right? Rolling a truck out to a client only to find out you're missing a piece on that truck. That is a really timely, costly mistake, because it requires another human being now to stop what they're doing and meet you, or you've got to go all the way back. And you can't really bill your client for that, right? So like with TigerPaw, for example, we manage minimum and maximums on every vehicle. So our clients, at the end of the day, they can go through their sheet, because you're using your mobile phone as you fill items. So we can easily tell you, you said you wanted a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 7 on that vehicle, and you can actually lay out all that vehicle before you roll it, so you've got everything you need. The maximums are also important too, because we talked about, you don't want to raise your costs by ordering a bunch of things you don't need, right? So to find out that, hey, we can't find any of these items that we need, I'm going to order another one, and then you find out for some reason all 12 of them are in Bob's truck, that's a problem. So those are the kind of things that I think are big mistakes. And a lot of that comes down to just not tracking it, right? It comes in on your dock, and now you got to get an order fulfilled. So you might just slam that right into somebody's car, right? A technician grabs it on the way out the door. You've never intake that, right? It doesn't ever become part of your inventory. And that's why we say everybody does inventory, right? That cost should be adjusted, the count that it came in. If it's serialized, that serial number should come in, right? And then you track that all the way through the life cycle. So maybe it comes into a certain bin in a warehouse, and then it goes onto a certain technician's vehicle. And then when it gets sold, it should go into the customer's inventory. So you have a full history of everything the customer ever paid for. And so those are the kind of things that need to be done. And the mistakes oftentimes have to do with just not managing it, right? And I think a lot of it comes down to is you're in a hurry. Well, and it's the old adage of you're too busy working in your business to work on your business. Oh, we don't have time to track that. We got to get an order done. Well, no, you don't have time not to track that. You need to get that order fulfilled. So, when you've got inventory that is sitting around that's not being used, when you got inventory that has gone out to a client, but you haven't billed them for it, it's another mistake we see. If you're not tracking the physical items and you don't realize that so-and-so grabbed that item, maybe Beth grabbed that item on the way out to a customer, but it didn't get tracked. Now the customer's got the item, but you're not able to bill them or pay, and get paid for it. So those, I give you a lot of ideas, but those are a lot of the examples related to challenges and mistakes we see with managing inventory.
Well, as you were describing some of those areas where things can go wrong, it kind of made me think about, the fact that right now is probably one of the worst times to not be managing your inventory properly, just given the supply chain issues that we've been seeing and the broken systems there. I mean, what could be not a minor loss or a minor overspend on accidentally ordering a second product that you already had in years past is now sort of, a horrible error, right? Because you might not be able to order that product. It might not be as simple as, oh, right, I need to just click here and get another one. So
and we're seeing that in everything, right? Our washing machine just died. And so we looked at, the pump that we need is something they're trying to track down. My COO, I think, waited months for a dishwasher. We even looked to say maybe we'd just go buy a new washing machine rather than fix it. But then that's, multiple weeks. So I agree with you 100%. Right now, being on top of your inventory and trying to anticipate your needs and getting ahead of them is a real critical thing. And if you've got the cash flow, I would rather have a little too much stock in some things today so that I could be flexible when somebody needs it than be running thin and have to tell a client it's a month and giving them an opportunity to go check with somebody else.
But then the danger of that, of course, is like, okay, yeah, I over-ordered intentionally here, but am I really keeping track of that as a strategy, right?
Right, because at some point,
2 jobs will come around, and then those two products that you over ordered are now gone, right?
Exactly, right. And you know, and the other thing with the system, if you're doing monthly, you know, if you're looking at reconciliation reports weekly or monthly, at some point when you start to get items again, you can look and say, hey, I've got, you know, I got more of these than I need because I track my mins and max. Let's go ahead and run a special and see if we can get these gone. So then you don't end up sitting on them so long that you take a depreciation hit, you know, when it finally comes time to throw them in the bin if they're not worth anything, which I suspect is kind of that device you showed me earlier.
Well, so speaking of that, yeah, you know, obviously we put out this call to integrators to kind of like show us their oldest bits of gear that have been sitting on the shelf for so long. And, you know, we kind of by proxy sort of made it a point of pride to submit the oldest one. And, you know, we had some fun and being a little tongue in cheek there, but I think, you know, the issue is still sort of close behind, and walking hand in hand with that is that, you know, how can integrators minimize the chance of something actually getting lost on the shelf like that again for such a prolonged period of time, in this case, over 30 years?
And you know, obviously I have a company that sells software that does this, right? But if you don't embrace TigerPaw, embrace something that is a full inventory system. And I happen to think that we have the best inventory management short of $1 million ERP. It's something we've been doing since the mid 80s with telephones and DOS, right? I mean, we've done serialized tracking and FIFO, LIFO pools and just multi locations, and as long as you can imagine. A lot of people like to use QuickBooks. The problem is QuickBooks is really it's a great accounting system. We actually use it for accounting, but it's a poor inventory system. But embracing a full inventory system, one of the things to consider is serialization. You know, a lot of items anymore have serial numbers, and we are proponents of serialization. You don't have to track serial numbers in TigerPaw, and you can track a mixture. But if you're doing serialized tracking, I mean, let's take that example again, right? You order a box of items, they come in, you've got your barcode scanner at your dock, you scan them. Now TigerPaw knows exactly what you've got. None of that, but workflow can actually tell the technician who's waiting on that job. I mean, that's another problem we've seen too. People don't use the system. They got a customer's waiting to have their order fulfilled, and the item's been here for a week, but nobody told the tech responsible that we've got their item, right? The item is sitting there. What about that's poor customer service. So you scan it in, it goes, hey, this guy's waiting on it for this order. We're going to tell him, but now we know where it's at. We also know the cost that was paid, so that can flow to the accounting package, right? Now we say, all right, we're going to put this on the shelf here in this bin. TigerPaw would know exactly where that is, right? And when you pull it, you put it into a staging location. So a lot of our customers will use like a staging bench where you're going to pick all these items. I'm going to put them here, make sure I got everything. Well, now we know it's at the staging location, and we've reserved it so nobody else can go into the system and take that item. That's another key point, right? Is if you're not managing it, whoever has that physical item wins. So if they grab it off your desk or they grab it out of the bin before you get a chance to get it, it's gone. So having the system say, I'm reserving it, it's here. Now we put it in a vehicle. Now we actually put it in the customer inventory, and I have a full history of everything every customer's ever bought, serialized, which becomes very important when customers start to buy repetitive items that age, because you got warranty on them, right? How many of the people watching this right now have had a client try to pass an old TV off as a new one for the warranty work, right? So by having the serialized tracking, you're like, no, I know better. This particular item you actually bought on this date, and here's where the warranty comes. So, you know, managing at that level, using a system like ours that has automatic mins and max. So at the end of the day, you can actually click a button and TigerPaw will go through your whole inventory and all of your vehicles and tell you exactly what you need to order or move to meet all of that, right? So if you know, I always need these things on hand, I always need this many of these things on hand, we can do that. And I would also say then you can pull reports monthly or weekly. And then a physical inventory is incredibly important. Once a year is when most of our clients, and that's when you actually will go out into your warehouse and, you know, the system will say, I'm supposed to have 2 of these, and you count them. And you actually manage your count. I only got 1. And shrinkage is unfortunately a thing, right? Or I got 4 of these. And in some places, you actually have to pay taxes based on the value of your inventory. So being able to do that and know exactly what you've got and reconcile that inventory, and in our case, within a penny, is really, really huge. So, you know, I know that's a plug, but I have to plug a system, right? Because at the end of the day, you cannot solve these problems with people or with paper. You need a system that's going to manage that inventory all the way through.
So something that we like to kind of ask and think a lot about is, you know, is there a certain size of integration company where you believe dealers need to have a dedicated purchasing manager for some of those tasks that you just listed?
Absolutely. Where is that size? Again, you know, I'm from the school of, I don't know if I can tell you it's at 15 employees or it's at $3 million. You know, the first thing I would suggest is automating it, right? Even if you're just using the basic QuickBooks, you got to have that in there somewhere. and have some level of automation and control. And then from there, I think it comes down to your resource needs. Is it 2 hours a week you're ordering, or is it 2 hours a day you're ordering? How much effort does it take when an item comes in to manage that item and get it to a job site, right? So I don't know. There is certainly a point where you got to have one. But I think if you're not automating first and everything's on paper or in spreadsheets, I think it's very hard to determine, do you really need a human being, and how many hours a week do you actually need that human being?
Despite any concerns from integrators who think that they're small potatoes in terms of their size and that they don't need, something like that, can you give sort of like a recap of what TigerPaw can do, especially aimed at those people who, might not think that they need it, but
Absolutely.
As they're growing, as they're developing, they probably really do?
Well, and I kind of walked through that whole life cycle of a product before, right? But some of the additional things that we do in there, for example, is we've done a real-time integration with Eatalize, which is the largest online catalog provider, right? And it's right built into our product. So when you realize that, oh, I've got to replace a television, for example, with a client, in TigerPaw, we can go right into Eatalize and show you within your search criteria the 4 TVs that might work. And then you can pick one of them. And then what we can actually do is go into your distributors. And I think we support, I want to say close to 10 distributors, but I could be off. We actually will go in and we can come back and tell you the exact location of the warehouse and the exact cost. Because sometimes proximity is more important. I can get that in 2 days from Kansas City versus I can save $20 ordering that from California. So when you're actually deciding on what items to do, it makes it easy to find the right item. It makes it easy to find the cheapest cost item that you can get it from your vendor and build that right into your quote that will then flow through as you process your order. So, in addition to managing the items as they come in, eventually, in addition to being able to pull up and know where everything's at, we built some really smart components in there. Our latest release that came out, we've actually built automatic shipping notification and PO processing. We've added this to one vendor. We're adding it to more. But our grand vision, imagine this, Adam, because remember, we're in multiple verticals, right? So some of our clients are small and some are huge, like Carousel Industries on the East Coast, where they're running 600 users and moving all kinds of stuff around there. In the office equipment space, the managed print space, for example, one of the use cases is you've got a copier that's running out of toner. That device could actually send an email to the customer. TigerPaw can grab that email, automatically generate a service ticket, understand that that is an order for a certain toner, generate the purchase order, send it out to the vendor, and then when the vendor ships it, the automatic shipping notification, the information comes right back into TigerPaw, including an alert to you to say, hey, that item's on the way to the client or on the way to you. And you have all the additional functionality we talked about, right? So, even if you're a one-person shop, this can save you time and money in a pretty high level. And what we're seeing even on the integration side is, there's light bulbs now that are starting to be able to report themselves as failed, right? So imagine that level where, something fails, the system, TigerPaw automatically generates a ticket, automatically orders a part, tells you that it's been ordered, when it's coming in, and tracks that item for you. That's where our vision of taking this all is how do we get the human element out as much as possible and make things really fast and really affordable? Because TigerPaw also has the ability to say, I know 4 vendors you're using, I'm going to order it from the cheapest vendor for you. And so, look, if you're a single person shop, we are probably too much for you. We have a minimum investment of 6 users. We have a number of people that have maybe 4 users and use it and fully embrace it. But there is a whole thing about if you need a BB gun versus a howitzer, right? But if you're at 3 or 4 users and you're ordering a number of items, the thing can end up paying for itself versus the monthly fees, just in helping you find lowest cost vendors or preventing you from ordering things you don't need, right? So there's that, and that's really gets into more of a consultative conversation with the client. But everything from just in time, I just need to get this thing on a PO and have it drop shipped to the client. We can do that. Or I got multiple warehouses, multiple vehicles, jobs going on all day, and I've got to get parts all over the place. We can handle that. But it really comes down to how much time and how much money are you burning, and how much time and how much money would you save to implement a system.
So then, James, where would you direct our viewers and listeners who would like to learn more?
Oh my gosh, you can come to tigerpaw.com. You can reach out to me at LinkedIn. You can email me at james@tigerpaw.com. Of course, I'll get you to somebody on the sales side. I think we have a sales at tigerpaw.com. We got a pretty good sized staff. So there's lots of ways to reach us. Just about any avenue you'd want to come in, we'd be happy to have a conversation with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today, James.
Adam, thank you very much for talking about inventory. And, a lot of times this is a topic that isn't as exciting and isn't as sexy as a lot of other topics, but it's a really, really important topic. And it's one of those things that everybody struggles with. So I'm really grateful that I got a chance to talk about this with you.
To all of our integrator and manufacturer friends, be sure to submit your top products for CE Pro's Best Awards and great projects for CE Pro's Home of the Year Awards. Find more information and all the deadlines at cepro.com.